The sunset in Santorini was everything Peter promised, a watercolor masterpiece of orange and pink stretching across the Aegean. I held up my wine glass, watching the light dance through the rosé as my husband of 11 months fumbled with something in his jacket pocket. My name is Hannah, and this was supposed to be our first real vacation together. The villa was perfect, perched on the cliff's edge with whitewashed walls, and that infinity pool I'd been dreaming about since we booked it. Everything felt like a fairy tale, right down to the candlelit dinner on our private terrace. To us, I said, tilting my glass toward him. To new beginnings. Peter's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his own glass. I noticed but chose to ignore it, attributing it to the romance of the moment. He'd been acting strange all evening, checking his phone more than usual, running his fingers through his hair the way he did when he was nervous. "Hannah," he started, then cleared his throat. "Before we toast, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you before we got married." I smiled, my mind racing to happy possibilities. "Are you finally admitting you hate my cooking?" He didn't laugh. Instead, he pulled out an envelope, creased and worn like it had been opened and refolded countless times. "I need to be honest with you. Before we try for a baby." My stomach dropped. The envelope trembled in his hands as he slid it across the table. "I have a daughter," he said quietly. "She's 14. Her name is Bella." I laughed. I actually laughed, because surely this was some elaborate joke. "What?" "Her mother's name is Simone. Simone Welch. We were together for years and—" He swallowed hard. "I never really got over her." The wine turned sour in my mouth. "You're serious?" "Read the letter," he said, pushing it closer. "Simone wrote it when she found out about our engagement. She thinks it's time Bella knew the truth about me." My hands were steady as I opened the envelope, steadier than they had any right to be. Inside was a handwritten letter, elegant script flowing across expensive paper. Photos fell out. A man who was unmistakably Peter holding a baby. Peter at what looked like a school play. Peter and a stunning woman at some coastal resort. "When?" I managed to ask. "When was the last time you saw them?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Last month. The business trip to Vancouver." Vancouver. The word felt like glass in my mouth. I'd helped him pack for that trip. I'd kissed him goodbye at the airport. I'd sent him silly texts about missing him. "I know this is a shock," he said, reaching for my hand. "But I'm telling you now, because I love you. Because I want us to move forward with no secrets." No secrets. I pulled my hand away and stood up, walking to the terrace railing. Below, waves crashed against the cliffs, a steady rhythm that somehow kept me grounded. "Hannah, please say something." I turned back to him, surprised by how calm I felt. "Thank you for being honest," I heard myself say. I need some time to process this." He looked relieved. So relieved it made me sick. "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm just glad it's finally out in the open." I nodded, picked up my wine glass, and forced a smile. "To honesty, then?" We clinked glasses. I drank deeply, letting the wine burn down my throat while my mind raced ahead, calculating, planning. Later that night, I lay beside him in our king-sized bed, listening to his steady breathing. He thought I was asleep. He thought I was processing. He thought he'd done the noble thing by coming clean. What he didn't know was that with every breath, with every beat of my heart, I was already plotting his destruction. Because it wasn't just the lie about his daughter that broke me. It was the casual way he'd maintained two separate lives. The calculated deception. The years of perfectly crafted stories. Well, Peter, I thought, as I stared at the moonlit ceiling, two can play at that game. And I'm about to become a much better player than you ever were. You're being remarkably calm about all this, Peter said over breakfast, 3 days after we'd returned from Santorini. He reached across our kitchen island to squeeze my hand. I squeezed back, my wedding ring catching the morning light. What good would screaming do? We're adults. We can handle this maturely. His relief was palpable. Poor Peter, so worried his perfect wife might make a scene. I poured him more coffee, just the way he liked it. I've been thinking, I said carefully, maybe I should meet them? Simone and Bella? He nearly choked on his coffee. I don't think that's a good idea. Not yet. It's complicated. Everything's complicated, honey. I kissed his cheek as I grabbed my laptop. I've got deadlines. Don't forget we have dinner with Robbie tonight. The moment Peter left for work, I called my sister Clara. He did what? Clara's voice exploded through my phone. I'll kill him. I'll actually kill him. Not if I get there first, I said, already typing Peter's password into his laptop. He'd never changed it from our wedding date. But I need your help. How illegal is it to access someone's email if you're married to them? Technically. Very. Practically. Get everything you can. I'm coming over. An hour later, Clara sat cross-legged on my couch, her legal pad filling with notes as I scrolled through years of Peter's correspondence with Simone. Look at this, I said, turning the screen. Every month he transfers $5,000 to an account in her name, but on his tax returns, he claims single status and no dependents. Clara's eyes narrowed. Tax fraud. That's interesting. What else? I pulled up a folder of photos. These are from last Christmas, when he told me he was at a conference in Chicago. He was in Aspen with them. That son of a bitch, Clara muttered. Wait, go back to that email from May. The message detailed plans for Bella's trust fund. Peter intended to cut ties once she turned 18, washing his hands of both mother and daughter. He's planning to abandon them too, I said quietly. Just like he'll eventually do to me. Clara grabbed my hand. Hannah, you need to leave him, now. Take half his assets and run. I shook my head. No. Running isn't enough. I want him to feel what it's like when your whole world turns out to be a lie. My phone buzzed. A text from Peter. Can't wait for dinner tonight. Love you. I smiled grimly. Clara, how good are you at creating fake email accounts? Why? Because I'm about to reach out to Simone, as Kate Williams, a journalist researching successful women in tech. Clara's eyes widened. You're going to meet her? I need to understand what I'm dealing with. I started typing the email. Besides, Peter's not the only one who can lead a double life. We spent the next few hours building Kate's online presence. LinkedIn, Twitter, a basic website. Clara's legal knowledge helped make everything look legitimate. That evening, I slipped into a black dress for dinner with Peter and Robbie. Peter's best friend and business partner was already 3 drinks in when we arrived at the restaurant. Hannah! Robbie hugged me too tight. Still can't believe this lucky bastard managed to land you. If only he knew. I watched Peter and Robbie talk business, noting how they lowered their voices when discussing certain deals. More secrets, more lies. My phone vibrated in my clutch. An email from Simone. Dear Ms. Williams, I'd be happy to meet for coffee next week. Everything okay, honey? Peter asked, noticing my expression. I smiled brightly. Perfect. Just perfect. Later that night, I added another entry to my growing document of evidence. Photos from dinner, recordings of their hushed conversations about questionable transactions, screenshots of hidden account numbers mentioned in passing. My phone lit up with a text from Clara. You sure about this? I looked at Peter's sleeping form beside me and typed back, he chose this game. I'm just changing the rules. Tomorrow, I'd meet the woman who shared my husband's heart. But tonight, I had more emails to search, more lies to unravel, more truth to excavate from the ruins of my marriage. The cafe Simone chose was exactly what I expected. Upscale, hidden away in a trendy neighborhood, the kind of place that served artisanal everything. I spotted her immediately, elegant in a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Before Peter, anyway. Ms. Welch? I extended my hand, channeling every ounce of professional confidence I'd learned in publishing. Kate Williams, thank you so much for meeting me. Please, call me Simone. Her smile was practiced. Perfect. I have to admit, I was intrigued by your email. There aren't many journalists covering women in tech consulting. I set up my recorder, partly for show, partly because I needed every word of this conversation. That's exactly why your story interests me. Single mother, successful career, maintaining work-life balance. Oh, I'm hardly single, Simone laughed, stirring her latte. Bella's father is very much in the picture. My hand tightened around my cup. Really? That must be wonderful for your daughter. Peter's an amazing father. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. Look, this was last Christmas in Aspen. Bella's first time skiing. I forced myself to smile at the image of my husband teaching a teenage girl how to ski while I'd spent Christmas alone, believing he was working. You seem very close. We are. Simone's voice softened. We almost made it work again last year, actually. Right before... She trailed off, catching herself. Before circumstances changed. She straightened up, professional mask back in place. But that's not relevant to your article. Of course. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check notes. As I did, I let my bag bump her designer purse, slipping the tiny recording device Clara had helped me buy into its side pocket. Tell me about your consulting work. For the next hour, I listened to Simone talk about her career, watching how she carefully edited around the parts that involved Peter. She was good at this, at maintaining the facade, at playing her role. One last question, I said as we finished. What advice would you give to other women trying to balance it all? Simone's smile turned sharp. Never settle for less than you deserve, and never let anyone make you the second choice. The irony almost made me laugh. After we parted, I waited in my car, connecting to the bug in her purse through my phone. For several minutes, there was just the sound of traffic. Then, it's me. Simone's voice came through clearly. You won't believe who I just met with. No, Peter, listen. Some journalist asking about women in tech. Of course I was careful. I turned up the volume. Your wife still playing happy families? Simone laughed. God, she really believes in that fairy tale, doesn't she? No, Bella's fine. She misses you. I know. Just a few more months until everything's sorted. My hands shook as I hit record. The account's set up? Good. And she has no idea about the money? Perfect. You always were good at managing people, Peter. I listened until the conversation ended, then played it back 3 times. Each word felt like another nail in the coffin of my marriage. My phone buzzed. Peter. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I texted back a heart emoji, then called Clara. You need to hear this, I said when she answered. Looks like Peter and Simone have plans of their own. Send me the recording, Clara replied. And Hannah? I found something in those financial documents you sent. There's a pattern of transfers that doesn't add up. What kind of pattern? The kind that suggests Peter's been moving money around long before Simone. There might be others. I thought about Simone's sharp smile, her casual mention of circumstances changing. Clara, can you do a deep background check on Peter's family? Especially his brother Trenton, the one who never comes to family events? Already on it. Want to bet there's a reason he's estranged? I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, seeing the steel in my own eyes. No bet. Just find him. Something tells me he might have his own stories about Peter. The game was changing. It wasn't just about exposing a double life anymore. It was about uncovering every lie, every secret, every hidden truth. And I was just getting started. Trenton's apartment was nothing like Peter's sleek penthouse. Peeling paint, mismatched furniture, and a stack of music magazines suggested a life lived without pretense. He opened the door with a beer in hand, looking so much like Peter, it hurt. You must be Hannah, he said, stepping aside. Gotta admit, I was surprised to get your message. Thanks for agreeing to meet. I settled onto his worn couch. I'm guessing you know why I'm here. Let me guess. My dear brother's finally shown his true colors? Trenton sat across from me, his laugh bitter. Took you long enough to find me. I pulled out my phone, showing him the photos and documents I'd collected. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Peter's not just lying to me. He's moving money around, hiding accounts. Sounds familiar. Trenton took a long drink. Did he ever tell you about Rachel? Who's Rachel? The first girl he got pregnant. 10 years ago. He grabbed a folder from a nearby shelf. Mom paid her off, made her disappear, just like she tried to do with Simone. But Simone was smarter. She knew how to play the long game. My hands shook as I opened the folder. More documents, more photos. A younger Peter with another beautiful woman. Bank statements showing massive transfers. Your mother covered this up? Mom's specialty is making problems go away. Trenton's voice dripped with disdain. Why do you think I left? I couldn't stomach the family business anymore. The lies, the cover-ups, the donations to keep people quiet. I leaned forward. I need proof. Everything you have. Why? So you can divorce him and take half? He studied my face. No. You want something else. I want the truth to come out. All of it. I met his gaze. Will you help me? Trenton smiled. A real smile. Nothing like Peter's practiced charm. Little brother finally picked the wrong woman to lie to. What's your plan? I outlined what I'd discovered, what I suspected about Peter's business dealings with Robbie. Trenton filled in gaps, adding names, dates, account numbers. Start with the offshore accounts, he advised, sketching a diagram. Mom and Peter used them to hide money from the IRS. One anonymous tip to the right authorities. My phone buzzed. An email notification about suspicious activity in Peter's company. The tip I'd sent yesterday was already bearing fruit. It's starting. I showed Trenton the email. His company's launching an internal audit. Perfect timing. Trenton pulled out his laptop. Want to see something interesting? Mom's been embezzling from her own charity for years. Peter helps her launder the money through his firm. We spent hours connecting dots, building a web of evidence. By midnight, I had enough documentation to destroy not just Peter, but the entire family's carefully constructed facade. One more thing, Trenton said as I prepared to leave. Bella, Peter's daughter, she deserves to know the truth about her father. I pulled out a flash drive. Already handled. Anonymous delivery scheduled for tomorrow. Every lie he's told her, every plan to abandon her once she turns 18. You're thorough. He sounded impressed. Need help with anything else? Actually, I hesitated. How would you feel about attending a dinner party next week? At your house? With Peter? And his boss, and several key clients. I smiled. It might get interesting. Trenton laughed. Count me in. About time someone showed them what karma looks like. Driving home, I called Clara. You were right about Trenton. He gave us everything we need. The tax authorities responded to our tip, Clara said. They're opening an investigation into Peter's company. Perfect. How's the video coming? Almost done editing. It's brutal. Every lie, every secret meeting, every hidden transaction. When this plays at your dinner party, Peter won't know what hit him. I pulled into our driveway, seeing lights on upstairs. I have to go. He's home. Hannah? Clara's voice softened. Are you sure about this? Once we start. He had chances to come clean, I said, watching Peter's silhouette move past our bedroom window. He chose lies. Now he can live with the consequences. I ended the call and headed inside, ready to play the role of devoted wife for just a few more days. The countdown to Peter's destruction had begun, and there was no turning back. Everything looks perfect, Peter said, adjusting his tie as our guests arrived for the dinner party. You've outdone yourself, honey. If only he knew how true that was. I smoothed my black dress and greeted Robbie and his wife, then Peter's mother Anne, who swept in wearing diamonds that probably came from her embezzled charity funds. "Hannah, darling," Anne air-kissed my cheeks. "Such a lovely—" Her voice trailed off as Trenton walked through the door. "What is he doing here?" "I invited him," I said sweetly. "Family should stick together, don't you think?" Peter grabbed my elbow, steering me toward the kitchen. "Why would you invite him without telling me?" "I thought it was time to heal old wounds." I pulled away, grabbing a tray of appetizers. "Besides, your boss specifically asked about him last time." The evening progressed exactly as planned. Clara arrived fashionably late, laptop bag in hand, playing her part perfectly. "The presentation setup is ready in the living room," she whispered as she passed me. I clinked my glass, gathering everyone's attention. "Before dinner, Peter and I have prepared a little something, a celebration of family, truth, and new beginnings." Peter beamed, completely oblivious. "You didn't tell me about this." "I wanted it to be a surprise." I nodded to Clara, who dimmed the lights and started the video. The screen flickered to life. Peter's face appeared first. Not the public version, but private moments caught on security cameras and hidden recordings. Him kissing Simone in hotel lobbies. Secret meetings with Robbie about questionable transactions. Phone calls about offshore accounts. "What is this?" Peter lunged for the remote, but Trenton blocked his path. The video continued mercilessly. Anne's voice discussing Rachel's payoff. Peter and Simone planning to take money and disappear. His recorded confession about abandoning Bella. "Turn it off!" Anne's voice shook. "This is absurd." "Is it?" I stood, addressing the shocked faces around me. "Every word is documented. Every transaction tracked. Every lie exposed." Robbie was already on his phone, likely calling his lawyers. Peter's other guests whispered among themselves, horror and disgust evident on their faces. "Hannah," Peter's voice was dangerous now. "What have you done?" "Me? I simply showed everyone who you really are. A man who maintains multiple families, who helps his mother steal from charity, who defrauds his own company. You're going to regret this," he snarled. "No, Peter, you are." I turned to his boss. "The SEC received an anonymous tip about those offshore accounts this morning. And Bella? She got proof of every lie you've told her. Simone, too." The room erupted in chaos. Anne collapsed onto the sofa, clutching her pearls. Robbie was shouting about damage control. Peter's face had gone from red to white. "You can't prove anything," he tried. Trenton stepped forward. "Actually, she can. I gave her everything, little brother. Every document, every recording, every dirty secret our family tried to bury." "You'll go down with us," Anne hissed at her eldest son. "Maybe?" Trenton shrugged. "But at least I'll go down honest." Clara started distributing folders to key guests, evidence packages I'd carefully prepared. "You'll find everything documented here. Bank statements, emails, recordings. The authorities already have copies." Peter grabbed my arm. "You think you're so clever? This was all a setup?" I met his eyes calmly. "No, Peter. This was karma. You taught me how to live a double life, remember? I just turned out to be better at it than you." The doorbell rang, right on schedule. 2 FBI agents stood outside, badges ready. "Perfect timing," I said, letting them in. "I believe you're looking for Peter and Anne. They were just discussing their financial arrangements." As the agents began reading rights and asking questions, I walked onto our balcony, finally letting myself breathe. Behind me, I could hear the collapse of Peter's carefully constructed world. Clara joined me, handing me a glass of wine. "You okay?" I watched Peter being led to a police car, his perfect life shattered like the promises he'd made me. "You know what's funny?" I took a sip. "He actually thought the worst thing he did was lie about having a daughter. He never imagined I'd find everything else." Never underestimate a woman with access to your passwords. Clara clinked her glass against mine. Inside, the chaos continued. But out here, watching my revenge unfold under the stars, I finally felt at peace. The morning after the dinner party, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News outlets were having a field day with Peter's arrest. Financial prodigy's double life exposed, screamed one headline. Mother-son charity fraud scheme, declared another. Robbie's desperate voicemail made me smile. Hannah, please, we can fix this. Whatever Peter did, I had no knowledge. A text from Clara interrupted. Turn on Channel 7. Now. I flipped on the TV to see Simone giving a tearful interview outside her house. I had no idea about the fraud, she claimed, clutching a tissue. Peter told me the money was legitimate. I'm just as shocked as everyone else. Liar, I muttered, forwarding the recordings of her discussing the offshore accounts to the FBI agent handling the case. My doorbell rang. When I opened it, I found Bella standing there, her teenage face a storm of emotions. Are you Hannah? She asked, hands shaking slightly. I know who you are. I stepped aside. Come in. She perched on my couch, looking around the home her father had shared with me. That flash drive you sent, it was you, wasn't it? You deserve to know the truth. Mom's lying on TV right now. Bella's voice cracked. She knew everything. She used to brag about how Dad would leave you, and we'd get everything. I sat beside her, keeping some distance. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this. Don't be. I'm glad someone finally told me the truth. She pulled out her phone, showing me texts from Peter. He's still trying to explain everything away. Says he did it all for me. What do you think? I think he's a liar. She looked at me directly. And I think you're the only person who's been honest with me. My phone buzzed again, Peter's lawyer requesting a meeting. I ignored it. What happens now? Bella asked. Your father and grandmother will probably face charges. The company's under investigation. As for the money, I hesitated. I don't want his money, she said firmly. I just want to know why. Why maintain two families? Why lie to everyone? Because he could, I said simply. Because people like your father think rules don't apply to them. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window, we saw reporters gathering. Bella tensed. There's a back exit, I offered. Through the garage. Thanks. She stood, then turned back. You know what's weird? I always wanted a sister. Now I kind of feel like I found one. Just not the way I expected. After she left, I checked my email to find a message from Peter, marked urgent. Inside was a PDF, a formal confession taking full responsibility for everything, claiming his mother and Simone were innocent. I forwarded it to Clara with the message, he's trying to play noble. Too late. Way too late, she replied. Just got word from the FBI. They found 3 more accounts under different names. Looks like there might be other women. My laptop pinged with a news alert. Breaking. Robbie Cooper. Steps down as CEO amid fraud investigation. Another domino falling. I poured myself a coffee and settled in to watch the empire crumble. By evening, Trenton called with updates. Mom's being charged with multiple counts of fraud. Peter's lawyer is pushing for a deal. Robbie's throwing everyone under the bus to save himself. And Simone? Her tearful interview backfired. Someone leaked her recorded conversations about the money. She's hired a crisis management team. I thought about Bella, caught in the blast radius of her parents' lies. Send me Simone's number. Why? Because her daughter deserves better than 2 parents in jail. I texted Simone. Bella knows everything. Stop lying. Take the plea deal they'll offer. Give her at least one parent who chose truth in the end. Her response came hours later. You won. Isn't that enough? I looked at the divorce papers on my coffee table, Peter's desperate confession in my email, and the news coverage still exploding across every channel. It was never about winning, I typed back. It was about consequences. Your daughter is the only innocent one here. Remember that. Setting down my phone, I watched the sunset paint my empty house in shades of gold. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more chaos, more unraveling of Peter's web of lies. But tonight? Tonight I could finally breathe. The Santorini villa looked different in winter. Quieter, more austere, like a beautiful woman without her makeup. I stood on the same terrace where Peter had confessed his lies 3 months ago, holding his letter in one hand and my wedding ring in the other. "Are you sure about this?" Clara asked through my phone speaker. "You could sell the ring instead. Some things are worth more as symbols." I held the ring up to the fading light. "How's the foundation coming along?" "We've already had 30 women reach out. All victims of financial abuse, all needing help exposing the truth." Clara paused. "Peter's sentencing is next week. Are you coming back for it?" "No need. I've said everything I needed to say." The headlines had been relentless. Peter's guilty plea had opened floodgates. 2 more women came forward with similar stories. More hidden accounts surfaced, and Anne's charity fraud expanded to include politicians and celebrities. My phone buzzed with a text from Bella. "Mom took the deal. 6 months house arrest. Thank you for pushing her to tell the truth." "How are you holding up?" I texted back. "Better than expected. Starting therapy next week. Dad keeps writing letters from jail. I'm not reading them." "Good for you." BTW. Found your foundation's website. The story's there. They helped me understand I'm not alone. I smiled, remembering how lost I'd felt just months ago. None of us are alone. That's the point. Another call came in. "Trenton. You're not going to believe this. Mom tried to flee the country. Airport security caught her with diamonds sewn into her clothes. Let me guess. The missing charity jewelry? Bingo. FBI's having a field day. She's facing additional charges." I walked to the edge of the terrace, where the waves crashed against the cliffs below. "Your mother never did know when to stop pretending." Speaking of pretending, Robbie's wife called. Says she found evidence he was stealing from their joint accounts. Wants to know if our foundation can help. "Send her my number." I held the ring out over the water. Everyone deserves a chance to reclaim their truth. The sun was setting now, painting the horizon in fierce oranges and pinks, just like that first night. I unfolded Peter's letter one last time, though I'd memorized every word. "Hannah, by the time you read this, I'll have confessed to everything. Not because I'm noble, but because you left me no choice. You were supposed to be the simple one, the trusting wife who never looked deeper. Instead, you dismantled everything I built. I almost admire how thoroughly you destroyed me. Almost." I ripped the letter into tiny pieces, letting them flutter into the wind like confetti. The ring followed, a small golden arc catching the last rays of sun before disappearing into the darkening sea. My phone lit up with another message, a photo from Clara of our foundation's new office space. The sign read, "Phoenix Rising, supporting survivors of financial abuse and domestic fraud." "First support group meets tomorrow," she wrote. "Wish you were here to see it." "I'll be back soon," I replied. "Just needed to close this chapter properly." A final text came through, this one from an unknown number. "Ms. Williams, this is Rachel. Peter's first, well, you know. I heard about your foundation. Can we talk?" I looked out at the horizon where my ring had disappeared, thinking about all the women like Rachel, like Simone, like me, all of us carrying pieces of the same broken promises. "Of course we can talk," I wrote back. "Your story matters." The sun had fully set now, the first stars appearing in the velvet sky. Below, my ring lay somewhere on the seabed, just another piece of metal returning to the earth. But unlike that night 3 months ago, I wasn't plotting revenge anymore. I was building something better. My phone buzzed one final time. Clara again. Coming home tomorrow? I took one last look at the terrace where my old life had ended, and my new one had begun. Yes, I typed. We have work to do. The waves kept crashing below, steady and strong, like the truth itself, unstoppable once set in motion. I turned away from the view, leaving behind the last traces of Hannah, Peter's wife, and walking forward as simply Hannah, a woman who refused to let lies define her story. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as Peter was led out in handcuffs. I watched from across the street, sipping coffee with Clara and Trenton. 15 years, Clara said, checking her phone for the verdict details. Plus, full restitution to all victims. Mother got 12, Trenton added. No chance of early release given the escape attempt. I studied Peter's face as he passed the media gauntlet. He looked older, smaller somehow. The charm had worn off, leaving just a man who'd finally faced consequences. Ms. Hannah? A voice behind me made me turn. Rachel stood there, clutching a folder. The support group wanted you to have this. Inside were letters, dozens of them, from women who'd found their voice through our foundation. Women who'd exposed abusive partners, who'd reclaimed stolen assets, who'd rebuilt their lives. We're opening 3 new offices next month, Rachel said proudly. She'd become our most dedicated volunteer. The waiting list keeps growing. My phone buzzed with a text from Bella. Watching the sentencing online. Feel strange? Relieved, but sad. Coffee soon? Of course, I replied. Our monthly coffee dates had become a fixture. Not quite sisters, not quite friends, but something uniquely ours. Hannah. Peter's lawyer approached our group, looking uncomfortable. My client asked me to deliver this. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for an astronomical sum, along with a note. You won. Take it. Consider it payment for services rendered in teaching me humility. I ripped both in half. Tell your client I don't want his money, I said. Tell him I want him to think about every woman he hurt, every life he damaged, every truth he buried, for the next 15 years. The lawyer nodded and retreated. Clara squeezed my hand. Speaking of truth, Trenton said, Robbie's wife just became our newest client. Turns out he was hiding money since before they married. The dominoes keep falling, Clara mused. Good. I finished my coffee. Ready for the board meeting? We walked to our foundation's headquarters, now occupying an entire floor downtown. Women filled the conference room. Rachel, Simone, attending remotely during her house arrest. Other survivors turned advocates. Even Robbie's wife sat there, taking notes. Ladies, I began, we've helped expose 43 cases of financial abuse this quarter alone. But that's just the beginning. Clara pulled up our presentation. We've partnered with 3 law firms, 2 forensic accounting firms, and a network of therapists. We're not just exposing abusers, we're rebuilding lives. And teaching others to spot the signs, Rachel added. The prevention program launches next week in local high schools. I looked around the room at these women, all of us scarred, all of us stronger. When Peter confessed his lies in Santorini, he thought he was being noble. He never imagined he was actually lighting a fuse. To burning down the patriarchy, Clara raised her water glass. To building something better from the ashes, I corrected. My phone lit up with another message from Bella. Mom's actually doing the work in therapy. Says she wants to volunteer when her house arrest ends. Is that okay? I thought about cycles breaking, about truth spreading like wildfire, about women reaching back to help others up. If she's ready to be honest, we're ready to listen, I replied. The meeting continued, full of plans and purpose. Outside, reporters were probably still discussing Peter's fall from grace. But in here, we were focused on rising. Later that evening, I stood in my office, watching the city lights flicker on. On my desk sat a framed photo of that Santorini sunset, not from the night of Peter's confession, but from my solo return, my reminder that endings can be beginnings. Clara appeared in my doorway. Ready? Rachel's group starts in 10. I grabbed my bag, thinking of all the women waiting downstairs, each carrying their own version of my story, each ready to transform pain into power. You know what I've learned? I said as we walked to the elevator. The truth doesn't just set you free, it sets everyone free. To freedom, Clara smiled. No. I pressed the lobby button. To justice. The elevator descended, carrying us down to where more women waited, ready to learn that the first step toward justice is simply refusing to swallow lies. I'd learned that in Santorini. Now it was time to teach it to others.